Hey, welcome to the Sinner and the Saint. I'm Melissa Bell.
And I'm Allison Kane.
So, we played pickleball this weekend.
Oh gosh, are you in that now?
I mean,
It's like a whole cult movement.
I'm not a cult movement. I'm probably here to disrupt it. I'm a
I
disruptor.
love it. I love it. Yes, you are. So how was it?
It was fun.
I mean, I think I'd actually enjoy it.
It's really fun.
As long as I don't get sweaty.
Really? You don't like to sweat? Well, you do Pilates, so maybe not.
I don't like to sweat.
Do you sweat in Pilates?
No.
Oh.
I like to exercise in climate-controlled environments.
I like it.
And even if I do yoga, there will be no hot yoga for me. That is not climate-controlled. That is climate extreme on purpose. Not my jam.
Okay. So you like to be in control.
Of the temperature.
And that's it?
Well, obviously not. Lots of things. But yeah, I do not enjoy sweating.
So we were laughing because the jiu-jitsu gym, we have all windows on like half the space that we have. And it was really cold in the winter. And so he would turn the heat on.
Right.
Well, now that it has become spring-like and, 80 degrees sometimes, he still has not turned the AC on.
Oh.
And we're like, it's the new trend. It's hot jujitsu. Come enjoy the hot jujitsu.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I did turn my air conditioning on in my house last week. It just got to be too much.
Yeah, and it's freezing today. And you're like, nope.
I'm not turning the heat on because it's going to warm up again. Just, you got to bear with me.
Yeah. So when I read the room, as we did a couple weeks ago, the room says that it's summer, but outside it's winter.
Yeah. That's right. Don't fool yourself. It's a bunch of April Fools going on around with the North Carolina weather all the time.
No joke.
Oh, speaking of that, April Fools, how perfect is James 1 that we're going to sit with today, verses 22 through 24. It starts out, don't fool yourself.
Okay.
I love that. Don't fool yourself into thinking that you're a listener when you're anything but. Oof. Letting the word go in one ear and out the other. Act on what you hear. Those who hear and don't act are like those who glance in the mirror, walk away, and 2 minutes later have no idea who they are or what they look like.
I feel like that scripture is for me today. Okay.
Wow.
So, Speaking of acting on something that you hear, I had this really great opportunity come my way recently. Great opportunity. But from the beginning, I just felt like I was not supposed to do this. And it kind of killed my soul that I was not supposed to do this. But I know that I know that I know. And let me tell you, I tried to weasel my way out of the knowing. I
tried to not hear the things.
I went to scripture to see if I could unknow the knowing. I did everything I could. I called people to help me to change my mind. But I knew, have you ever had it in your gut?
Yeah. Yep. And you're like, I don't get this.
And it makes no sense.
No sense.
So,
I mean, we just went through that. Yeah.
I'm being responsible and going with the knowing, but I'm not feeling it.
You're not agreeing.
I'm not agreeing with the knowing.
But you did act on what you heard.
I did. I'll let y'all know how this works out because right now it's pretty painful.
Well, I love how you noticed it, how you struggled with it. You
I'm
were
still
honest
struggling.
about it. She's still struggling. She's worried. Sometimes it takes a while to work through it, but she's not covering it up, right? And that's what I want to talk about. I think it's so easy for us to sit in the Word and do our Bible study and do whatever it is, your Lexio, whatever. But then we let the Word go in one ear, as James 1 says, and out the other, not acting on what we've heard from the Lord. And that's not good. I mean, obviously, we already know that, but I think it's taking time to notice that we are guilty of that sometimes. We're so easy to skip over the things that are hard, that we don't really want to hear. It's so much easier to blame somebody else or something else, right? For what's going on in our hearts. and not act on what we hear from God and His Word. So instead of listening and sitting and dealing with it, acknowledging it, leaning into it, I think there's 3 things that we do. You know me in alliteration.
I probably do all of them. I can't wait to hear what I do.
Okay. We're going to break them down, but we covered up.
We cover up what we hear or what we're feeling.
Yep. Like, it's fine, everything's fine. Like, we cover it up, we criticize, and we clean it up. So let's dig into that.
Okay.
All right. So first, we cover it up. So we just basically ignore the situation. We pass over it. We minimize it. The hurt or the frustration or whatever it is. And we can even use a positive attitude to make it sound like we're doing a good thing.
This kind of goes back maybe to when I was doing Lectio, and it was a visual where I saw that I had just put a Jesus sticker on everything and walked away.
Yeah.
So instead of going back and working through all the hard stuff, I was like, oh, that was pre-Jesus, but now we're in a different phase now, right? And Jesus was there and not walking through it.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then, it's actually what holds us back. But we think this positive attitude is like winning. It's like, well, I'm just, it's fine. I'm just going to keep a positive attitude about that. But we're really just covering up our feelings. And covering up our feelings never gets us anywhere. It certainly doesn't lead to the incredible gift of like wisdom and faith and trust and all the stuff when we're with God.
Yeah.
Because we're pretending. We're basically faking ourselves out.
But we're so good at faking it, we don't even know.
Girl, that whole fake it till you make it, I think that we've taken that way too seriously.
Way too far.
We need to take that out of our vocabulary.
Bring it back, kids. Bring it back.
Exactly. I mean, there's, appropriate reactions in certain situations that we need, but then, which isn't fake, it's just appropriate. But then there's this where we just get so comfortable with the false self, and it's so much easier just to move on. And just, well, I'm just going to have a positive attitude about that. But inside, we're not positive at all.
Right.
Which is really, so you're not actually being positive.
Right.
So you're fake.
You're being very cynical, actually.
Fake with yourself.
Yeah.
All right, the second one. We criticize. So instead of acting on what we hear, we just blame it and criticize. We blame everybody else for our circumstances and the situation we're in, what's going on, what's going sideways in our lives. It's our spouse's fault. It's our kids' fault. It's our work's fault. It's our health's fault. It's just the universe hates me right now.
It's menopause.
Yeah. Oh gosh, that's a good one in our age group right now. If I didn't have to deal with such and so,
Yeah.
then my life would be fine. I'd be so much happier. I'd be so much nicer. I'd be so much more successful. I mean, you fill in the blank. We criticize others to cover and hide from what we don't want to hear or face. And we may, or at least act on, we may hear it, but we're not acknowledging it. So the reality is, in these situations, like, maybe it's me.
Right? It's like, yeah, I hear what you're saying, but did you hear about so-and-so?
Yeah. Right. So we cover it up in ourselves, and then that's something that we can do inside ourselves. And then sometimes we criticize and we project it onto other people, not acknowledging that it's within us.
Yeah, that brings me back to the lesson that we learned years ago in a marriage class, and it was like, draw a circle around you, and you can only control, manage, deal with whoever's in that circle, and that's just you. So deal with you.
Right.
We don't ever want to deal with us.
So many people would go to that marriage class and be like, I am here to fix my husband.
Yes.
Like, actually, you're here to stay in your circle.
Okay.
And work on yourself.
So there's a really funny video I watched recently, and someone's like, oh, how long have you been married? And it was a husband and wife, and they said, 22 years. And then they said, what do you consider the success to your marriage? Every question they asked, the response was hysterical. So the success was, according to the husband, well, we love each other and we have date night and and she's like, we sleep in separate beds. I was like, oh. But like 3 questions they asked him, and every single one he's giving this positive spin, and she's just railing him.
Oh my gosh, she's just being totally honest.
She was deflecting, or would you call it
Covering up,
also blaming him,
and then criticizing.
Yes.
Oh gosh,
it was funny.
We might have to post that just for a good laugh. This third one I want to spend most of the time on because I think this we clean it is a big one in Christian circles. We clean up the problem, like you were saying, by slapping a scripture on it, or we push it aside or shrug it off, what we've heard or what we're experiencing or what we're feeling, and we actually use God to do it.
Okay, tell me about this.
They call them Christian platitudes. All right. And it's basically like if you have company coming over and you have a hole in your kitchen table.
Yes.
Like, I don't know, your kid put a smoke bomb on the table and you've got an ugly I don't know, whatever. So you put a pretty decoration or plant over it. It doesn't make the ugly go away underneath. You're just covering it with a pretty plant. So that's kind of how I see Christian platitudes. A Christian platitude are those comments that we make where someone shares something that's going on and you're like, you know what? God's got this. Don't worry about it. You know what? God still does miracles. It's going to be fine.
How? Okay. So I normally will take it a step further than that.
Okay.
And I'll say, this is the most annoying thing anyone can say. But the truth is, God is going to work it out.
Yeah.
Like, I've taken a whole step further, though. Because I've let them know. Like, I'm getting ready to say something super annoying to you.
Yeah.
And then I drop it anyway. Yes. So what are we supposed to do instead?
Well, I think, so what happens when we use these platitudes in ourselves, because we do it to ourselves too. Like sometimes I will share something that's hard in my life and that's going on. And then I'm like, you know what, but I'm just praying about it and I'm just trusting God with it. You know? And so it's basically like, sometimes this just isn't the right time to talk about it.
Right.
So I brought it up, but now I'm shutting down the conversation.
Is that kind of like, what do they say on social media when they give a little teaser, but then they won't tell you, like,
a teaser.
Or they'll say, prayers please, but then won't tell you any details.
Right. Well, I think sometimes, certain people and situations aren't the right place to share certain things.
Agreed.
People may ask you a question, and so I will answer it honestly. I'm a terrible lie. I can't do it. It's a problem.
Oh, I'll teach you how.
But, so I'll answer the question and say, but I'll shut it down, like basically letting people know, but we're not, but I'm praying about that and God's going to work it out. So sometimes I do it to shut down the conversation. Other times I do it because I probably don't want to face it and sit in the feelings. So I just am covering it over. But these platitudes diminish the pain that we're in or the situation, the feelings that surround the situation that we're in, whether it's our own or it's somebody else's. We basically, someone's sharing and we just kind of cut them off with a platitude.
Right.
Which is not a good feeling because it makes other people feel like they're not being heard. It's like, okay, I literally just said this and she's going to give me that.
Right.
That's all I get. It also, like I said, it helps us hide when we throw a spiritual platitude on it. It helps us hide from our feelings and just move on from the situation. And it actually can unintentionally, because I don't feel as if, I'm sure there are some people out there that intentionally want to do this, but I think for the most part, it unintentionally gives others the idea that it's their fault. Like, well, you just must not be praying hard enough, or someone's just insecure, so they think that, or, oh, well, she's just like putting me down.
Right.
Like when I told someone one time that I would pray for them, she took it as an offense.
Oh, that was me.
No. This was years ago.
Okay.
But she was not feeling secure in her parenting, and I was trying to be kind, and because I knew I couldn't help, other than prayer. And so I was like, I'll just pray for you. I will be praying for you about that. I know that's hard. And so she took it as somehow it was her fault. And, that brought in doubt and shame for her. And so that's what it does. Instead, I think a really great thing to say is, yes, that is, if someone uses a platitude, because we can be in those situations.
Okay, great. Let's do it.
Okay.
All right. Okay. So
Role play.
Send me something and I'll send you a platitude.
Okay. So I was sitting with my husband the other day and he said this and it really, really hurt my feelings and I just don't know what I'm going to do about it.
Well, thank God you're a submissive wife. I don't think that's a platitude. I'm really bad at this. Okay, hang on. I'll pray for your marriage. I'm really bad at platitudes, aren't I?
You're so funny. Oh, all right, let me give another example.
Okay.
All right.
I can't.
So you're sharing something about a frustrating situation and someone says, well, their response is, well, just everybody's on their own Christian journey, aren't they?
Yeah, Solomon's journey went right to hell one time. I saw that happen.
And I mean, that actually happened to me. And I was like, yeah, I'm thinking that really does, that did not help me in that situation at all. Like, yes, that's so true. Yes, it's true that God still does miracles. Yes, it's true that God is in this. Yes, it's true. But the point is, that's not helping me work through my feelings right now. Help me work through my frustration, in this trusted environment, this trusted conversation. And so I think when someone throws out a platitude, so you say, well, this situation happened to me, and I'm really upset about it and I don't understand it, but I know God's got a plan for it.
Okay, so yeah, this whole thing I talked about at the beginning of the podcast, yes, I know that there's a plan for it right now, but dang it.
Yes. So if you are going in and digging deep with your feelings on that and figuring out the root of why you feel what you're feeling, but some people want to skip over that. And so I would say, yes, that's true. God is totally in the details and there's a reason for it. But how are you feeling right now in spite of all that?
Really crappy.
And trying to pull that stuff out of people that aren't willing to. And then asking yourself those same questions, because we don't need to cover or criticize or clean things up. We need to trust God with all the feels.
Yeah. So let me go back to your conversation. You said somebody said, everyone's on their own Christian journey, or, their little catchphrase they had. What would have been a better response?
I think at that point, that must have been really frustrating for you.
Yeah.
Don't cover it up with some sort of Christian platitude. If I'm talking about it, it's not gossip. It's because I just need to have this conversation to work through it. It had just happened. And I'm like, yes, I know that. But, that's what I wanted to say. Yes, I know that, but I'm still really frustrated. It doesn't matter. This still happened. This is real. And I felt just covered over as if what my feelings weren't important.
Right.
And they didn't really have the time to really talk about that. Oh, that's kind of boring. Let's skip over that.
Did you write them off your list?
No, I did not.
I'll put a black marker.
No, because I'm sure I do that too. I'm really working on this with people. I want to be a listener. I want to act on what I hear from God, as this verse in James says, and I want to act on what I hear from people. I think both are so important. And while we're listening and acting on what people are saying and we're hearing from them, we should be praying on the flip side of that, listening for what God has, if anything, to share in that situation for that person. I just think it's so important. I think it's where healing occurs. It's where we learn that our emotions and our feelings are okay.
Yes.
We don't just have to cover them up and move on. It's okay to be angry with another Christian that was a jerk. It's okay to be frustrated with your spouse of 22 years. Yeah. I mean, that's just normal. If you're not, you're a big fat liar. I'm just saying. Yes.
Happily married at
I
22
just
years.
called some people
Liar.
big fat liars. But if your kids are doing all the right things, big fat liar. Like, that's not life. And I think when we just cover up with these spiritual platitudes, and we, not just that, but we criticize other people for our own mistakes, or we cover our own feelings up, we are missing out on such fruit and growth with the Lord. And then learning from what He's telling us about ourselves, like the root of these things.
Okay, so it brought me back to, I don't even know how many years ago this was, a long time ago. And I'm walking, and we've talked about this before, but it's been a while, walking through the church into the auditorium, and one of the pastors stops me and go, "Hey, how's it going today?"
Yeah.
And I said, "Well," and I just kind of unloaded. Not heavy. You know me, I'm going to give like the 10,000 foot view, but I'm going to just bullet point for you. And he just stares at me like blankly, awkward pause. And I said, "But everything's all right." And he said, "Good, that's what I want to hear," and kept on walking. And I was like, "You should probably get a new profession."
So how interesting that you shared, you covered it up, or you dismissed it, and then he also did the same thing.
Like, I sat there waiting for something because, like, oh, wise one,
Yes.
which, by the way, never mind, I'm not going to go there. But,
Yeah. So
Yeah.
then and I think sometimes we respond and we cover because we see the reactions from other people that they can't handle it. Y'all, we all have feelings. We all have emotions.
we all have crap that we have to deal with.
So, yes. Like, just being real with people in an appropriate situation.
Right.
I mean, there's certain places. I mean, sometimes things just happen and conversations they occur. They're just organic in the moment. You weren't planning it and it doesn't feel appropriate, but then it seems like the right time. But it's important to talk about those things. We shouldn't cover them up. We need to take responsibility and not blame other people for our own mess. And then we don't need to clean it up with a spiritual platitude for ourselves or for others. Ask deep questions this week.
I do love a deep question.
Acknowledge people's feelings. Just say, "Tell me more." I mean, I've gotten to the point now with my kids, I've kind of quit giving advice because at this point they've already heard all my advice.
Right.
And they don't really want it. They just want to share. And I'll just say, "That sounds like it's really a hard situation to be in." Mm-hmm. And then they keep, they work through it. And that's really all other people want as well.
Sometimes I throw in a little, "We ride at dawn," and then people get super excited.
Yes, that's exciting too, even if you don't actually do it. So I hope you'll sit with James 1, verses 22 through 24 this week and sit with God and listen and act on what He may tell you about how you're covering, criticizing, or cleaning things up in your life. Thanks for joining us this week on The Sinner and the Saint.